We're gonna talk up here for a couple of minutes, and then we'll open it up if you guys have some questions for these guys. But first, really the obvious question: where did the idea for doing this come from?
Well, to us at this point, it's an old idea, right? I mean, another member of the company, Steve Bodo. Back in 1999, Steve and I were co-directors back then, and he's since moved on to The Daily Show. But Steve brought the book in.
His suits look a lot better, I gotta say.
Yeah. Steve brought the book in a way that people would bring any kind of material in for an ERS, the beginning of an ERS rehearsal period, which is that you bring something in, you have no idea what the company's going to do with it. You have no idea what you want the company to do with it. It just seems something that might be interesting to play with, because our work takes anywhere from 18 months to 2 years to produce a show. So at the very beginning of that process, we don't know where it's going to go. But Steve had just reread The Great Gatsby, and he brought it in and said, "What could we do with this?" And this was in 1999, and we didn't know. We looked at it, I think, the way a lot of people would look at a book that they were thinking of making into a play, and we looked through and found some sections with a lot of dialogue, and we started to try to stage some scenes with that dialogue. In fact, it was chapter 1, I think, that we worked on, chapter 1 and chapter 5, and we almost immediately got frustrated with that task of putting this novel on stage, because in order to make it into a regular play, you had to cut so much of it. You had to cut out not just the he-saids and she-saids, but all of these great observations and insights of Nick, the narrator. And I realized, listening to it almost immediately, that if you just do it as dialogue, that you lose the most important voice in the whole novel. And then it started to get interesting, because then we started talking about, well, what if we don't cut the narration? Because Nick is one of the characters as well as the narrator. It's a first-person narrator, so one of the characters on stage can be saying these things. It was a sort of simple idea at the time. But it led to the crazier and more exciting idea that, well, if everything that's in the narration can be a line of Nick's, then why can't we just do it all? Why not just do all of it? And that's when it got interesting to me as a director, because then we had a ridiculous problem that we had to solve, because it's way too long, it's too much. But it was also perfectly constructed. The idea of taking this text that Fitzgerald had written and treating it as something that could not be reduced or improved or reimagined, but that just had to exist in the form that it came to us in, was a great inspiration.
But then you placed it in a setting that has nothing to do with nothing directly to do. Where did that idea come from?
I'll let you take that.
Well, what did we do? We had to set the idea aside after we worked on it a little bit in 1999, and then John called me one day and said, "Let's work on this Gatsby thing again, and let's just work on it before we even find out if we have the rights or whatever." It's like it was like a burning issue for us. Like, we wanted to deal with this idea. So we met informally, just me and John and another actor named James Urbaniak, who was playing Gatsby at the time. And but we met upstairs in this little theater on Worcester Street, the same place you eventually saw the rehearsal. But you saw it down in the theater. We were upstairs. I don't even know why we met up there.
Yeah, we had a rehearsal space. I don't know why we felt like we had to rehearse in some tiny office, but we did.
But we were in a tiny office, and were irresistibly influenced by the surroundings.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And there was a place where it looked like a theater, this one entrance to where the interns sit upstairs. There's like a square entryway. And so John was like, "I want to sit here and watch it like a play over there." And
It was like I was watching it through a big doorway that was like a small proscenium, and let them just use that office that I was looking into as a kind of found set.
So it's a little bit of a mundane explanation for, like, you know, our great idea was just that it was the most obvious idea to have.
But it did make a lot of sense somehow, because I was looking for a way at that point. We had to set it aside in 1999 because there was a TV movie being made, and we went to get the rights, and they said, no, sorry, I think it was the A&E network owns it completely right now. We couldn't say yes to you if we wanted to. So when we came back to it, and this was like 2003, 2004, I had already decided we're going to do the whole book. So there had to be I knew there had to be a way in. There had to be a reason beyond just wanting to put the story on stage. There had to be a reason for doing the whole text. So we were meeting up there in that little office, and suddenly it occurred to me there, okay, Scott, you can play this employee. Correct me if I'm remembering this wrong. I thought, you can play this employee who's obsessed with reading The Great Gatsby.
Right, and then James is my boss, and I have to be careful when he comes around.
Yeah.
It made a lot of sense to me in terms of us kind of trying to bring reading onto the stage, trying to make make a play, not make a play, make a book a theatrical experience.
Exactly.
And the office connection was one that rang true for me, because I remember, you know, like trying to read great books, you know, on the sly when I had those temp jobs in high school.
Yeah.